The small coastal town of Gray Harbor was known for its picturesque lighthouse, which had guided ships safely through treacherous waters for over a century. But the lighthouse also harbored a dark secret. Local legend spoke of the ghost of a former lighthouse keeper, Samuel, who had mysteriously disappeared one stormy night. Emma, a marine biologist, came to Gray Harbor to study the local marine life. She rented a cottage near the lighthouse and soon became intrigued by the stories surrounding it. One evening, as a fierce storm rolled in, she decided to take shelter in the lighthouse. As she entered the old building, she felt a chill run down her spine. The air was thick with the smell of salt and decay. She climbed the winding staircase to the lantern room, where she found an old journal. It belonged to Samuel, detailing his last days and the strange occurrences he had witnessed. According to the journal, Samuel had discovered a hidden cave beneath the lighthouse, accessible only at low tide. He wrote of strange symbols on the cave walls and an eerie and pulsating light that seemed to draw him in. The last entry described his decision to explore the cave, despite the growing sense of dread. Determined to uncover the truth, Emma waited for low tide and made her way to the cave. She found the entrance hidden among the rocks and ventured inside. The cave was dark and damp, the walls covered in the same strange symbols Samuel had described. As she moved deeper, she saw a faint, pulsating light. The light led her to a small chamber where she found an ancient, ornate box. As she reached out to touch it, she felt a cold hand grip her shoulder. She turned to see Samuel's ghost, his eyes filled with warning. "Leave now," he whispered, "before it's too late." Ignoring the warning, Emma opened the box and found a strange, glowing crystal inside. The moment she touched it, the cave began to tremble, and a deafening roar echoed through the chamber. The light intensified, and she felt herself being pulled towards the crystal. With all her strength, she threw the crystal into the sea and scrambled out of the cave, just as it collapsed behind her. The storm had passed, and the lighthouse stood silent and still. Emma returned to the lantern room and found the journal had vanished. She knew the secret of the lighthouse had been buried, but the memory of Samuel's warning would haunt her forever. 5. The Carnival of Shadows. Every year, the Carnival of Shadows rolled into the sleepy town of Willow Creek, bringing with it a sense of excitement and unease. The carnival was unlike any other, with performers who seemed to appear out of thin air and disappear just as quickly. The townspeople whispered of dark magic and cursed attractions, but that didn't stop them from attending. This year, Alex and his friends decided to visit the carnival, eager for a night of thrills and chills. They wandered through the maze of tents and rides, marveling at the bizarre and unsettling displays. There was the Hall of Mirrors, where reflections seemed to take on a life of their own, and the fortune-teller's tent, where cryptic warnings were given in hushed tones. As they ventured deeper into the carnival, they came across a tent with a sign that read, "The Room of Lost Souls." Intrigued, they entered and found themselves in a dimly lit chamber filled with strange artifacts and eerie portraits. A mysterious figure, draped in a cloak, welcomed them and invited them to explore. Each friend was drawn to a different object. Alex was captivated by an old, ornate mirror. As he stared into it, he saw fleeting images of people he didn't recognize. Suddenly, the reflection of the cloaked figure appeared behind him, and the room went dark. When the lights flickered back on, Alex found himself alone in a different part of the carnival. His friends were nowhere to be seen. Panicked, he ran through the maze of tents, calling out their names. He stumbled upon the fortune-teller's tent, where the fortune-teller gave him a knowing look. "They are trapped," she said, "lost in the shadows of the carnival. To save them, you must find the heart of the carnival and break its spell." Determined to rescue his friends, Alex followed the cryptic clues provided by the fortune-teller. He faced a series of terrifying challenges, each more harrowing than the last. As he navigated the haunted attractions, he felt the presence of unseen eyes watching him. Finally, he reached the center of the carnival, where a grand tent stood. Inside, he found a strange, pulsating orb, surrounded by the shadowy figures of the carnival's performers. The cloaked figure appeared once more, revealing itself to be the carnival's master, a malevolent entity that fed on the fear and despair of those who entered. With no other option, Alex smashed the orb, unleashing a blinding light that engulfed the carnival. When the light faded, he found himself back at the entrance, his friends by his side. The carnival had vanished, leaving behind only the memory of their harrowing ordeal. The townspeople of Willow Creek awoke to find the carnival gone, its mysteries and horrors fading into legend. Alex and his friends never spoke of what happened that night, but they knew the Carnival of Shadows would return one day, seeking new souls to trap in its dark embrace. Hollow Hill was a small, secluded community known for its tight-knit residents and picturesque landscapes. At the top of the hill stood an old abandoned house that had been the subject of countless rumors and ghost stories. The house was said to be haunted by the spirit of its former owner, a reclusive artist named Victor Holloway, who had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Lila, a young artist struggling for inspiration, moved to Hollow Hill, hoping the tranquil surroundings would spark her creativity. She became fascinated by the old house and the legends that surrounded it. Determined to uncover the truth, she decided to explore the house and see if the stories were true. One evening, Lila made her way to the house on Hollow Hill. As she approached, she felt an overwhelming sense of dread, but her curiosity pushed her forward. She entered the house, her footsteps echoing in the empty halls. The air was thick with dust and decay, and the walls were adorned with faded paintings, their subjects obscured by time. In the center of the house, she found Victor's studio, untouched since his disappearance. The room was filled with unfinished canvases and strange sculptures. On an easel stood a portrait, covered by a sheet. Lila felt a strange compulsion to unveil it. As she did, she gasped in shock. The portrait was of her, painted in exquisite detail. Suddenly, the air grew cold, and the room seemed to come alive with whispers. Victor's ghost appeared before her, his eyes filled with sorrow and desperation. He explained that he had been trapped in the house by a curse, his spirit bound to the portraits he painted. He had foreseen Lila's arrival and hoped she would be the one to break the curse. To free Victor, Lila needed to complete the final portrait he had started before his disappearance. With trembling hands, she took up a brush and began to paint. As she worked, the whispers grew louder, and the room seemed to close in around her. Shadows moved at the edge of her vision, and she felt an unseen presence guiding her hand. Hours passed, and Lila poured her heart and soul into the painting. When she finally finished, the portrait glowed with an otherworldly light. Victor's ghost smiled, his form growing fainter. "Thank you," he whispered. "You have set me free." The house trembled, and Lila felt herself being pulled back to reality. When she opened her eyes, she found herself standing outside, the house on Hollow Hill crumbling behind her. The curse had been lifted, and Victor's spirit was finally at peace. Lila returned to her studio, inspired and invigorated by her experience. Her work took on a new brilliance, and she became known for her hauntingly beautiful paintings. The legend of the house on Hollow Hill lived on, a reminder of the power of art and the enduring human spirit. Ashenwood Forest was a place of mystery and beauty, known for its towering trees and dense underbrush. But it was also known for the disappearances. Over the years, many people had ventured into the forest, never to return. The locals spoke of the echoes, ghostly voices that lured travelers deeper into the woods, where they were lost forever. One autumn, a group of friends, Sarah, Tom, Lisa, and Ben, decided to hike through Ashenwood Forest. They were seasoned hikers, confident in their abilities and skeptical of the supernatural stories. As they set out, the forest seemed welcoming, the sunlight filtering through the leaves and casting dappled shadows on the ground. As they ventured deeper, the atmosphere began to change. The trees grew taller and denser, blocking out the sunlight. The air grew colder, and an eerie silence settled over the forest. They heard faint whispers, indistinct and tantalizing, seeming to come from all directions. Sarah, the group's leader, dismissed the whispers as the wind, but Lisa felt uneasy. She thought she saw figures moving in the shadows, but when she pointed them out, the others saw nothing. As night fell, they set up camp in a small clearing. The whispers grew louder, and the friends felt a growing sense of unease. In the middle of the night, Sarah awoke to find Lisa missing. She woke the others, and they searched the campsite, calling her name. The whispers seemed to mock them, growing louder and more insistent. Desperate to find Lisa, the group grabbed their flashlights and ventured into the dark forest. The whispers became more distinct, now echoing Lisa's voice, pleading for help. They followed the sound, their hearts pounding with fear and determination. After what felt like hours of searching, they stumbled upon an ancient, overgrown stone circle deep in the heart of the forest. The air was thick with a palpable sense of dread, and the temperature had dropped significantly. In the center of the circle stood Lisa, her eyes vacant and her body rigid. As they approached, Sarah reached out to touch Lisa, but an invisible force flung her back. Tom and Ben rushed to her side, helping her up. The whispers grew louder, now mingled with laughter and cries of anguish. The trees around them seemed to close in, and shadowy figures began to emerge from the darkness. One of the figures stepped forward, a ghostly apparition of an old woman with hollow eyes. She spoke in a voice that seemed to come from all directions. "You have entered the domain of the echoes. Your friend is lost to us now, bound by the same curse that claimed us all." Sarah, Tom, and Ben realized that the forest was haunted by the spirits of those who had disappeared over the years, their souls trapped by a malevolent force that thrived on fear and despair. To save Lisa, they needed to break the curse that bound the echoes to Ashenwood Forest. The old woman explained that the curse could be broken by finding and destroying the source of its power, an ancient enchanted tree deep within the forest. The tree's roots were entwined with the souls of the lost, and only by severing them could the spirits be freed. With the ghostly figures guiding them, Sarah, Tom, and Ben navigated the treacherous terrain of the forest. The whispers grew more frantic, and the darkness seemed to pulse with malevolent energy. They finally reached the enchanted tree, its gnarled branches stretching out like twisted arms. At the base of the tree, they found a large, glowing stone, pulsating with dark energy. Tom grabbed a nearby rock and, with all his strength, smashed the stone, The tree shuddered, and a deafening roar echoed through the forest. The whispers turned into anguished screams as the roots began to wither, and the tree collapsed. As the tree fell, a blinding light enveloped the forest, and the shadowy figures faded away. Lisa collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath but otherwise unharmed. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, and the forest seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The friends made their way back to the campsite, the first light of dawn breaking through the trees. They knew that Ashenwood Forest had been freed from its dark curse, and the spirits of the lost could finally rest in peace. They vowed never to speak of their ordeal, but the memory of the echoes would forever haunt them. Do you enjoy spooky short stories? Consider subscribing. Until next time, friends, good night.